Welcome to Two Facet, a podcast about building digital products. Hosted by Matt Mikulski, Product Manager, and myself, Juncal González, Product Designer. Join us to listen to our conversations about product development and how each role sees it from their perspective. Let's start. Hey, it's fun how we always say, I'm here with, and actually we haven't seen each other in person in almost a year, but yeah, apart from that, I'm good. Yeah. How about you? How are you?
That's true that we didn't saw ourselves like in real life almost a year. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm good. I'm good. A little bit foggy here today, but in general it's fine. I'm almost going on my holidays now, so it's a always good moment.
Are you recording podcast on holidays?
That's something.
What am I gonna do without you?
Nah. Worst case scenario, I'm gonna pack a microphone with me, so no worries on that one. Okay, but that's about the next episode in 2 weeks, and today we have some topics, no? Juncal, you prepared a topic for today.
Yes, today we are talking about design thinking. So, what is it, the process, and how it relates a bit as well with Lean Startup, and probably, Matt, you are going to challenge me a lot on this one. That's gonna be the topic.
As I told you before recording, like I hope to learn something today, so it's not gonna be challenge. I'm gonna be learning. So,
Great.
Let's start. Tell me. So, what's design thinking? Is it just designers thinking about things?
Well, yeah. No, okay. So, design thinking, it's a problem-solving process, a creative problem-solving process. And you can have different problem-solving processes. I mean, it's not the only one. But what makes it unique is that it's human-centered, so it always puts the people you are designing for in the center. And also, it pushes you a lot to try and think more creatively and to try and come up with ideas you wouldn't on your normal processes. So, on a nutshell, that's that. And it's...
And how do you do it? Meaning, okay, it's easy, like, it's a creative process and you come up with great ideas and they're innovative and everything is amazing, like a unicorn word, no?
Super vague, right? It's like perfect world. Well, so in theory, it consists of 5 phases. So for achieving that, you should go through 5 stages. So the first one is you would empathize with the user, with the person you are designing for. So in this first stage, you want to really put yourself in the shoes of the people you are designing for and really understand their problems and their worries, their concerns. Well, this is what makes the process human-centered, right? That would be the first stage. Then on a second stage, yeah.
Before we go to the second stage, tell me, like, before we go to the second stage, or maybe you plan to talk about it later a bit, but do you have any techniques that you would recommend or any things that can help you empathizing with the user? Of like, so you're this person that, hey, I'm gonna start design thinking process now. So first stage, empathize, and it's like empathize mantra, or what do you do? Like, what would be your recommendation?
Okay, so the first thing is being aware that you need to do that. So instead of, oh, I have this amazing idea, I'm gonna do it, be aware that first you need to, hey, but I am doing this for a person that's on the other side and I'm doing this for solving their problem. So that would be the first thing, being aware of that. And what tools can you use? Well, you can have maybe simple tools like just trying to reach that person and do an interview and try to learn who this person is and their problems. So you can do one interview, you can do multiple interviews. Then you can do more like advanced research, and then you can do maybe questionnaires or go to the place where this person is working to see how they work, or the place where they live to see how they live. Of course, you need more resources and time for this one. But actually, anything that you have at your hand can be useful. So what you have at your hand, it's an email from customer support that you received. That's already something, right? So you can already use it. Like, okay, what was this person saying? And check it out. So being aware and trying to use the resources you have at your hand. Otherwise, you can, go for interviews or doing questionnaires, or even there's stuff like asking the person to write a diary. So how they do a task, or how is their day, and they write everything on a book. So then it's like you are with this person for like a full week or a full day, and then you have a lot more information than just doing an interview.
On the diaries, on like daily diaries from user testing, I have one anecdote. So in Poland there is this Allegro, let's say it's like a local eBay that actually won with eBay. eBay went out from Poland after fighting with them. So right now it's more like Polish Amazon in Poland. So back in the day when they were designing their mobile app, they were having few users like writing dailies. What was interesting, one of them broke the arm. So he couldn't use the dominant hand anymore, and he was like forced to use the left hand, which was non-dominant. And then they found like bunch of usability problems for left-handed people, of like, oh damn, like hamburger menu stopped working at all, like, you know, a lot of like interactions or animations or swipes they designed stopped working for that guy at the same moment. So you can find maybe not that connected to design thinking, but I like that technique sometimes, because it's interesting what small like nice details you can get that later on can really like translate to something bigger. Like people can use both hands. Come on.
But yeah, it's a good one. No, it's a good one, because this person was putting himself on the shoes of someone who is left-handed, so was actually empathizing with that person. And so related to this one, another technique you can do sometimes, which is very obvious but we don't always do, is try to use your product like completely from the beginning to the end. Try to buy something and go to a customer support, whatever, and do the process yourself and see how it feels.
Okay, so what's the next stage?
So once you know who you are designing for, the next stage is defining the problem. And why do we need this stage? Because as humans, we are very complex, and the problems we have, they are multifaceted. So they are complex and they have different factors. So sometimes it's really even difficult to know what is the problem that is causing something. Those are called wicked problems. So since we are solving a wicked problem, we need to dig deeper and to define the problem. So what is exactly the problem we are facing? And this will be the starting point for later. Start thinking on the solution. So we are going to frame the next stages, let's say. And for this one, it's basically, there are different ways of doing it, but it's basically writing a sentence with the problem that includes the user. So, and I think user stories used in Scrum are an example of this. So as a user, so in your example, for example, as a left-handed person, I need to scroll with the mouse because I need to move towards the right of the page, right? So you are defining the problem, having the user in the definition of the problem. That would be the second
Are there any tricks that you would point in this stage to people?
For sure, not trying to include the solution. So this is the most common mistake, to include the solution in the problem definition. So another way of defining a problem is using the how might we statement. So it's like you ask the question of how would you solve the problem, right? So I don't know, for instance, let's imagine you want to you have kids on an area which is like a reception or something, and you want to do something with them because they are like moving around and it's very annoying for the rest of the people there. So you can say, how might we add a playing area in the reception? So this is not correct because you are including the solution already in the problem definition, right? And it's not correct because, I mean, you can move on and you can do this playing area. That should be fine. But this will stop you to think outside the box, which is one of the things that design thinking pushes you for. So instead, you can say, how might we calm down the kids? I don't know, or entertain the kids, or find something that...
entertainment, yeah.
Exactly, create entertainment for the kids. So then it can be a playground, or it can be a person who's telling a story, or I don't know, it can be something else. So yeah, that would be the tip for the second stage.
Good one. And keeping always the user in hand. Like, once you enter the shoes, right? Once you put them on your feet, don't lose them. Like, keep them on.
Exactly, yeah. So, and then once you already define the problem, so you put the constraint where you want to focus, then the next stage is to start ideating. So up to here, you don't want to think about solutions. As we said, you don't want to include the solution in the problem definition, and for sure you don't want to think about solutions when you are just trying to understand the person at the beginning. So now you jump to ideation, and there's a lot of tools in this part to try and make you think out of the box and create more ideas. So that's the point here, to not jump straight to the first solution you have and just stay with it, right? Like, oh, I know, I have the solution, it's this one. No, so to try to open your mind to, okay, maybe there's more solutions. Let me try and think of more options. So the most common one would be the brainstorming, right? That we all know.
Yeah.
So the logic behind that one is that if we don't judge the ideas and we put the ideas out there with other people, we can build on the ideas of others, and then the amount of ideas at the end will be bigger. Yeah. So that's one of them. But there are other, and a lot of them, they are super fun. Like, they are like games as well. So one is like the worst possible idea. So on this one, when what you want to try is to think about the worst solution you could have to the problem. So you want to flip it around. So it's interesting because this the problem with the brainstorming most of the times is that you are judging your ideas even before writing them in the post-it, right? Because we don't want to have bad ideas. I mean, so
yeah.
But this way it's like you free yourself, you free up your mind, and it's like, oh, I can do whatever. I can say stupid ideas. So then everyone in the group is saying stupid ideas, and they are opening up themselves. And at the same time, you're starting analyzing the problem, but from a different perspective. So after that, you already have some starting points to then generate like the proper ideas, and maybe some of those can be flipped and become really good ideas you could have not had in a different way.
Yeah. Would you say that things like design sprints are also living here, or they're something totally not connected?
No, so the design sprint, so we are now like going through the 5 stages. The design sprint basically takes the 5 stages and puts them into 1
like
week.
A short cycle.
Yeah, exactly. So in the design thinking, there's a couple of exercises that are the equivalent of this phase, like the crazy 8s and stuff like that, when you are like ideating and trying to push yourself forward. Yeah.
Okay, so you have so you're in this solution shaping moment. You try a bunch of stuff. What do you there? Like, what's next? What now?
What's next? Okay, so what you do next is, okay, you've come up with a lot of ideas, hopefully out of the box, and next you want to prototype them. So this means you want to make them tangible, right? It can even be just drawing a flow or something. You want to start to make them tangible. First of all, to analyze them a bit better. So you will start seeing if there are mistakes, if there are risks, where could you go. first yourself, then as well when sharing with the stakeholders, the people from the group, when sharing with others, when you make everything tangible, it's easier to discuss, it's easier to see the mistakes. And then after that, well, yeah, so this phase is really connected with the next one. So you can also use the prototype to test with the users. And the prototyping should be the fastest, cheapest you can do to represent your idea the closest as possible to the real one. Yeah. And well, there are different levels of prototyping. So if you are just making it tangible for yourself, for the group, for the stakeholders, anything simple like a drawing can work. But then if you're showing it to the user, you want to make the user feel like it's real, right? It can be completely fake.
So rather high fidelity prototypes, not really like a balsamic mockups.
Exactly, something that feels real. Or for instance, the Wizard of Oz. This is when you fake something, like for instance, if you are designing something like an Alexa or a robot that it's like typing stuff, you just fake it. So on the other side of the microphone, there's a person answering, but the feeling for the user is like if he has an smart microphone that it's answering his questions.
Yeah, good one. Yeah. Apple was hard coding like a signal reception on iPhone on the initial presentation. Half of the flow was just screenshots and like hard coded flows. And they were drinking a shot each time they knew that the edge case didn't happen. So they knew there are like possible bugs there, here and there, and everything is like super fragile. So they were faking a lot, and they were telling later on that after the presentation, majority of the team of the iPhone was just completely drunk because they were, making this as a drinking game.
Well, yeah, that's good. Adding the drinking game to the testing part. Yeah, but basically that's it, as you said, to try to make it as real as possible to get the reaction from the user. So then you get the reaction from the user, and then you know if you're going in the right direction with this idea. And at this stage, you can then go back, like, okay, this idea was not good, let's ideate again, or let's the problem was not well defined, let's define it again. Or maybe you found another problem, or maybe by testing you are like again empathizing with the person and want to look it from a different perspective. What I mean by this is not like a fixed process. You need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not like that. So actually you can start at any stage. You can move from one stage to another. You can iterate like in a loop. So in a way, we say a lot of time it's a process, but you can say more like it's a philosophy and a set of tools. As well, because you can use different tools on each stage. Each person is going to use them differently. So yeah, can be even more a philosophy and a set of tools. Yeah,
it kind of feels like a philosophy, and if you listen close enough, it's actually super similar to our last episode when we were talking about finding problem fit with the market, and then trying to think only about the problem and then moving to solution. And once you have a solution validated, you move to like calling that a product and trying to find like a real market for retail for that. Of course, that one was from my business perspective, so it's always about money. But good to hear it from design too. And then I know that for sure the design thinking is often compared to lean startup. So by sums we are now representing two different schools that exclude each other. What would you say?
I would say that they have similarities and differences, but for sure you can use both at the same time. Like, they are both agile methodologies, and I think that design thinking can really boost lean startup, like parts of it. So for instance, in lean startup, I'm not an expert, I just read part of the book, so if I say something silly... or you explain maybe to the listeners. Maybe they don't know what's lean startup, please.
I'm not gonna be amazingly good, but I was mentioning that in the previous episodes a few times too, and I really recommend to reading a book. But it's like a process, a philosophy, a framework on like how to run early stage startup. So the idea is there is a lot of tools. So there are things called Lean Canvas and stuff we can talk about deeper in different episodes. Let us know if you want to in comments in YouTube or any other way you can. There is an email that you can listen to at the end. So there's a lot of tools, but the main idea is about launching like minimum viable products. So cheapest set of solutions to the problem you try to solve, and then measure, learn from the measurement, and then rebuild again. So keep experimenting until you find whatever you want to find in your strategy. I guess the main difference between lean startup and design thinking is if you read books and you stick to them super, it's like lean startup says about MVPs. So this, like, for some people this means like I need to have working application, but I would say a lot of experimentation stays at ads level or being a landing page that failed for a feature. As I mentioned on one of the episodes, with my MRR blockage on my own startup, it's like if you don't bring me 400, I don't build you. So there can be different experiments, but in general you try to iterate. So you do like a small version, you observe, you close all of the customers in a feedback loop. So right after the release you should be like getting feedbacks from the customers already, and then you shape the next step basically. So you think about the strategy and where you want to move your product in the next one, and then you change the Lean Canvas and the whole strategy, and you try to iterate based on feedbacks. So that's also similarity, I guess, to the design thinking, because you also want to include this user there. But yeah, in a book and in the framework itself, it's more like you go. And I would say it's a misconception. So a lot of people love to say that lean startups uses this build, learn.
Build, measure, learn.
Exactly, build, measure, learn. But for example, what we do in the planner, and we had long discussion with Gabri Prat about it. It's like we really believe that we first learn. And it's always like this. So you can lie to yourself that you're building. But if you're building without learning, that's like wasted time. So we always try to learn. So, that's why we never come with, hey, Gabri had an idea. Or, hey, Matt had an idea. It's more like, hey, I talked to this guy, or I was checking that thing. And then this triggered something in my brain because I learned that someone is doing something. Or some part of users is requesting something. Or there is something. But we're learning first, trying to understand what's the nature of a problem we're trying to solve.
So
in
basically
different ways, depending on the scale.
Yeah, so basically you're empathizing. So the first stage we were talking. So before start building, you want to at least understand who you're building for, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I would say it's even mutual to some wilder techniques that are out there. So, for example, Basecamp, they have their own, well-known to us both, shape-up methodology on how running process. And then, in their case, this definition is called shaping. And it's also the same. So you really need to understand the problem you're solving, like really deeply understand the user and why you're solving some issue in order to be able to prepare like a good pitch, which is a result of this shaping process of that methodology. So I guess a lot of those agile methodologies starts there. Even though some people say they're building first, I don't believe they're building first. Even if they're building for themselves, like they spent like 10 years being someone that they're building software for now or anything else, they need to have something behind.
Exactly. It's not like out of the blue that you start building something. At least you saw a need on someone or, yeah. Well, and this...
I mean, there are people that may start out of blue. I'm not saying no, but it's not like super popular case.
Yeah. So, yeah. They are very similar in this fact of experimenting and iterating, because design thinking is as well like that. So you iterate again on the idea until you have like a more a final solution. And as similar to what you were saying, that you don't build, you understand first. I think that design thinking can really boost lean startup, because if you're building, measuring, and learning, so as you said, if you build really knowing your user, so with this deep understanding of who you are designing for and what are his problems, what you're gonna build, it's so much better. And as well, if you push yourself to try and be more creative and to have more ideas, as well, what you're going to build, it's more likely that it's a bit more unique or different from the competitors. And even afterwards, when you measure, if you have the user on the top of your mind, in the center, maybe even the metrics that you choose will be more centered on measuring how happy he is with the product, right?
That one is actually interesting, because a thing that a lot of product managers face, I guess, is setting some of the KPIs or some of the metrics, like finding the right metric, or like a proxy metric, or a metric that can relate to like a value given to your users. So how can you measure value given? And then, deeper understanding you have, better things you can imagine, or easier it's gonna be for you to find this action or a set of actions that you should be following.
Also, if you have a clear definition of the problem you're solving with this thing you build, again, it helps you find the better metric. So yeah, if you have it as a philosophy on the back of your mind, it can really boost the lean startup. And yeah, I can see it, like, it also might feel like, oh, but if I do design thinking, then it's gonna take a lot longer, right? Than if I just do something quick. And
it may, like, I would say time is not necessarily needed. I mean, a problem, meaning, like, so for design thinking, as we were talking, there's technique called design sprint. We can talk about it later. But this concludes everything in 5 days, and you end up with solution at those at the 5th day. So, probably there are hacks. I would more, I don't know. One advice that I really want to say, I guess I'm just like, plugging it into your flow right now because I have a good idea. It's just that to everybody listening is like, I love design thinking, but one thing I would really advise is not applying that to every problem you're solving. So, sometimes it's like over engineering, or it can be an over engineering over something easy. I mean, if you're having an old product, old meaning it's established, you're selling, everything's fine, and you have a lot of iteration and improvements into the product, and you're not launching new lines or necessarily like complicated projects, probably you have it somewhere already, and then changing some filters somewhere or doing like A/B tests may not require all of this, because maybe it's just cheaper to launch 5 and check what's happening. So that would be one tip of a potential trap to not go to. I mean, maybe not apply it always to everything, like the whole process. I don't mean like a philosophy. Yeah. Philosophy is totally
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to do the whole process, like I want to do a research, and then I want to do some workshops for doing ideation, and then I need some user to test, of course it can get longer. So depending on the project, it might be an overkill. But if you have it just on the back of your mind, that's your way of working, even if you just want to do the filters that you say, you can just ask, okay, who asked for this? What's the problem I'm solving, and why am I doing this? And can the filter go on the top, on the bottom, or is there like a different way of doing a filtering in the screen? And maybe you are just doing that one person one day, but you're doing the process in a way, right?
True. Yeah, that's true. Of course. Yeah, nice one.
But you're right, like the full process, really, if you want to do workshops and stuff, you really need to be careful. And this takes me as well to when design thinking as this like big process is more needed. And I think comparing to lean startup, correct me if you think differently, design thinking, it pushes more to like disruptive innovation. And lean startup is more about small improvements that you would be doing. So maybe depending on the stage you are of the product, if you want to make more like a breakthrough new product, maybe you want to invest more in this design thinking. Or maybe you're more like in maintenance mode. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, and I believe so for me here, like, you can really merge design startup and lean thinking. If you the design thinking and lean startup, sorry, I totally mixed both. You see, you can mix them. My subconscious did that to me. What I'm trying to say is the techniques from design thinking can work really well for you even if you're in early startup. So as we were talking in a previous episode, like in problem market fit, like, you don't create solutions. You should be talking to your customers and validating other stuff. If it's potential for you, but in order to get potential, you need to talk to some people or validate that through internet with like a landing page. Or maybe you don't have money and you have access to users, so you go with the prototype. So I do believe a lot of techniques from there can be super borrowed and useful in a lean startup. So the other example can be, I really love using design thinking techniques and like a full-ish process whenever it comes to like a new space we're entering, or like,
exactly,
hard to explain. So let's geek a bit about healthcare now. So to all our listeners, imagine doctors are using electronic health records. So they're complicated softwares where the doctors are making notes in, and they're space of its own that we were exploring for the last 2 years with Juncal. But then within EHRs, you have a lot of possible complications like odontogram. So dentists are using like a picture of your jaw that are drawing on top of that. And you can try to attack it from, hey, we saw one jaw picture, let's just design that one, release it, and it's gonna be fine, and then we can iterate from there. And we almost tried something like this. But it's probably much better to explore space much deeper and understand the underlying problems, because in our case it's like a special group of customers that have their own needs that are super different, and between them they may be also different. I guess similar things can happen in like even old product, where you can discover something that's like a big space you have some idea about, but you don't really feel like, hey, I have a full grasp of it. And then I really like that either design sprint or like a full design thinking process, just to understand it fully afterwards. And then you can be much faster, you can rethink of some of the solutions, as you were saying. So it's more disruptive innovation in this way.
Yeah.
And you always can use like that's gonna be not popular, but my philosophy about concept designs. So
yeah.
if I would like to get even more problem in Agile world now, I would say you can do even something like, at the end of the design thinking, you can assume that you have your concept design that is like the perfect solution, and then you can make it cheap. I mean, code half of it and then change your mind in between. But you can go back to iterating from that and slicing down. By slicing, I don't mean like going back to waterfall. So you build yourself milestones, or you try to slice it into releases and you follow the plan to achieve the concept design, but more to relate to, hey, that's the concept design. And there might be parts that are more or less interesting from business perspective, and you can always drop them while building, but you have at least the direction there, and then you should keep experimenting and improving and stuff like this. But that's also like one of the possible ways you can combine all three of them, and
exactly.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, we've used design sprints like that, because when you are in the design sprint, you try to push everyone in the room to think creatively and to try to imagine the best solutions, and then after that you need to put it into the Scrum Agile kind of thingy, so you need to tweak it a bit. But I think it works. Like for us, it has worked. And maybe I can explain what design sprint is for the listeners who might not know it.
Yeah, maybe
So-
let's do it. We mentioned it a few times.
Yeah, so basically it's a compressed version of the full design thinking process. So if you so for the design thinking process, you have a lot of different tools that can be applied differently. So to do the process, you at least need some knowledge or some experience to kind of design and decide what tool to use in which moment and how to use the tools and all that. So with the design sprint, everything is absolutely defined. So it's so easy to apply. You have all the phases of the design thinking, and it's a step-by-step kind of recipe. You just need to follow. It was created in Google Ventures as a quick process for the startups to validate the ideas in 5 days. So basically what you do in 5 days is that you try to understand a bit the problem, which is the empathize part, where you bring people who know the problem of the user, who know the user, who are the user. You have exercises for defining the problem. You have stages. You have exercises for ideating as well, which is like the crazy 8s, and then the people are sketching and all that. And then at the end of the 5 days, you also are testing the final solution. So you create a super quick prototype in just 1 day, and the next day you are testing it with the users. So at the end of the 5 days, you have done the whole process, and you have already some conclusions if these ideas are a good way to go or not. And you can iterate as well. You could like repeat the process.
Yeah, and
As well.
as we said a few times, we've been using this process quite few times in our mutual career, and every time it was producing valuable things. So yeah, really encourage everybody to it.
Yeah, but it's interesting here as well, as you said, like the problem you're solving should be big enough, because otherwise it's totally an overkill.
Or unknown. So big or like we are people, all of us. So
Yeah. True.
yeah.
Uncertain,
That's
with
also, like,
uncertain
interesting
solution.
thing, because,
Yeah.
you know, I was saying a lot about strategy being risk, and then following the strategy is just de-risking it step by step, like removing the minds from it. I would say design thinking is also like amazing de-risking technique. So when you have a high risk of failure with some idea, design thinking gives you like guarantee that you're gonna be building at least something for someone, so that there is some addressable market that you go for, because like in full design thinking there is also like you should test viability of a solution produced, like, right? So you don't end it up with like we shall become gods and immortal ones. You don't produce that. You produce something that's actually producible by constraints. So
Yeah, viable and feasible, because at the end of the day, if it's not, so you want to solve the problem for someone, but if it's not feasible and it's not viable, the solution, in the end you won't be solving the problem. So for sure it's a requirement 100%.
teleportation every time, like, you know, this is my favorite problem. I can prove it's a problem with
Exactly.
addressable market, but it's still not worth going for. So yeah, good one. So shall we wrap up?
Yeah, I think so. It was a good one. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed this episode too. So how would you sum up everything to our listeners?
So we talked about what design thinking is, why is it a bit of a different process for problem solving, how it relates to Lean Startup, how is it similar and different, and how you can work with both. Anything else? Am I missing something?
I guess those are all of the topics. So yeah, I really liked it. Are there any tips we would like to leave listeners with also about the process? So anything that they should save in their brains after listening? So last words.
Well, I would say that it's valuable for everyone. So it's not only for designers and product managers. So it's valuable for everyone to know this process, not to know how to do a workshop or anything, just to have it on the back of your mind, like, hey, the things you're doing are for someone, the things you're doing are solving a problem, maybe you can find different solutions for a problem. So yeah, it's as a philosophy and something to have on the back of your mind. It's for everyone, developers, data analysts, whomever, even for your daily life. So yeah.
Let's sum up with Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And yeah, that's something to keep in mind always. Like, I like it, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you very much for this episode, and thank you everybody for listening. Hopefully we're gonna listen to ourselves in the next episode soon. Bye.
Yep. Bye next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to continue the conversation and challenge our thoughts, mention us on Twitter. We are at 2Facet Podcast. If you have any questions you would like us to answer in the next episodes, send us an email to 2facetpodcast@gmail.com. And if this content was useful for you and you would like to support our work, there is a few simple things you can do. Share it with anyone you think may benefit from this content. Subscribe or follow the podcast in the platform where you are listening now. And if you are on Apple Podcast, a rating and a review will be much appreciated. Thank you for listening, and until next time.